For many years, I've been wanting a new war game set in the Vietnam era. Will Hell Let Loose Vietnam become the best one out of them all? Let's find out. John Scavenger here, and over the last weekend there was an open playtest for Hell Let Loose Vietnam. This is my second weekend of playing the game, and where do I even begin? To kick things off, for those not aware what this game is, it's a war game set in the Vietnam War. This is the second game in the Hell Let Loose franchise, with the previous one being one of my favorite World War II shooters. The game, much like the predecessor, is a hardcore shooter with some milsim aspects to it. However, the Hell Let Loose games are more accessible and in a way, and perhaps best described as a hardcore battlefield. The maps are 50 versus 50 players in a variety of game modes, including warfare and offense. Where in one, you'll fight over 5 capture zones in the map, while the other is the offensive and defensive mode depending on your side. Attackers need to cap a zone with a 30-minute time limit per zone and then proceed to cap all 5 zones to secure the win. The defensive team needs to stop that from happening. You get to select your own class. One of the cooler things in Hell Let Loose is that per side you get to have one commander who calls in special abilities and is the main figure to steer the team the right way, with strategic maneuvers and making sure garrisons, the spawns for the team, are placed around all objectives that need to be captured or defended. You can also spawn in vehicles, call in napalm strikes, artillery barrages, recon planes, and way more. Beyond that, you have your squads consisting of squad leads who communicate with the commander and lead their own units into battle, which can be riflemen, medics, engineers, grenadiers, machine gunners, specialists, and each of these have gadgets or weaponry that make them useful in their own way. You will also have the pilots, tank crew, mortar, and recon classes accessible to you. The map we had in the playtest was able to showcase all the classes pretty well and give us a taste of what it could have been like in that era. You'll be running through dense jungle, trying to either take or defend objectives. And it's pretty tough seeing where you're getting shot from, and often you may run into a defensive position of the enemy, resulting in very close quarter fighting in the jungle. You'll also encounter open patches, villages, and other points of interest like a train yard. While you are a foot soldier running around, you will experience some intense battles. There's so much fighting happening around you, and pairing that with commander abilities like artillery strikes, napalm, etc. all coming down around you, it's utter mayhem, and an intensity you will not find in most regular shooters. Personally, the experience I had playing as commander, sniper, and regular soldier were all amazing. The fights were great, and it's getting to the point where I can see this game becoming one of my favorite Vietnam era games ever made. However, this game was running suboptimal in the playtest, to put it in a nice way. The frames I was getting were not great. Now, my machine is not the best, but even with a 40-70 win force, I'd expect to get anywhere near 80 frames per second to 100 frames per second. Which, in some cases, I still ended up having 20 frames per second. I went over a ton of different settings, trying to find what would work the best. But even with everything set on low, it did not help. On low, I had FPS issues and bad graphics. Of course, this is a beta playtest, and a disclaimer did say this was a stress testing for the servers, more so than anything else. So who knows how old the actual version was that we got to play. I know this playtest did more harm than good, as people were expecting a smoother and more optimized game already so close to the original planned release date of June 18th. But luckily for us, our voices were heard via social media, Discord, and feedback forums, as the game release has now been pushed until August 13th, giving it an additional 2 months of prep time. Is this going to be enough to fix the performance of the game though? Time will tell. I for one was planning to get the game regardless, because I really had high hopes that eventually the game would be in a good state. I typically would avoid a game that ran the way Hell Let Loose Vietnam did, because we gamers deserve to get a proper working game upon release. Other concerns I have with the game is the lack of traps. Comparing this to Rising Storm 2, where we had a large variety of traps that were actually in the war, we have nothing for that in Hell Let Loose Vietnam. We have mines, and that's it. I was trying to find a roadmap for the game as well and see if these traps would be implemented later on, but I can't find it. I really do hope this is something we will still get to really get a more authentic feel of the Vietnam War. I'd also love to have the tunnel system to be physical tunnels, but I also understand that would require a ton of resources to make that happen in this game. The current system is not that bad, but it certainly feels overpowered with a quick travel from point to point. The helicopter is another thing of concern from what I gather in the community. Where the controls are somewhat interesting, the overall feel of them is that they're lackluster in combat. I personally have not flown the helicopter in combat, but did get to be a gunner for a short amount of time. All in all, I feel they can be effective, but in typical Hell Let Loose fashion, that all comes down to the experience of those piloting and those gunning.
Thank you.
An experienced pilot can drop some serious volumes of supplies, and a combat heli can do some serious damage and support while capping souls. As I witnessed myself in a round as commander, where my pilot crew did fantastic work like that. A lot of things in Hell Let Loose is so situational, and it comes down to the people in game. Some rounds you will have epic battles, while others it's just a clean sweep. And if you were in a place as I found you got singled too often, then you may have just had a string of bad luck. After all of this though, I hope we do get another set of playtests before the release in August. We get to witness the changes, and it could be a great way to win people back over to purchase the game, as I feel most people would have skipped it upon release in a few weeks. The extra time they have to work on the game now will really be key to get the people pumped up again.
Awesome, brother.
So how about you guys? Did you get to play the game? What are your thoughts? And do you think the release being pushed back to August will actually help? Let me know in the comments. And thank you for checking out the video. And I'll see you all next week.
The tank's here. The tank's here.